All right, shalom, shalom. I want to give all the praise, all the glory, all the honor unto Yahawah, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakah, Kodash. Double honors goes out to the elder apostles of Great Millstone for teaching me the truth. Also want to acknowledge all the Akyam who are pushing this truth with sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. Shalom to the elect of the nation of Israel. This is Shabbai from GMS Denver. And I'm going to go in on verse 23, or chapter 23 in Exodus. All right, it says, "Thou shalt not raise a false report. Put not thine hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness." All right, so you ain't supposed to be out there, telling lies about people, And really, these laws go towards the children of Israel, So you definitely don't want to, really more so the elect, right? So you never want to speak falsely on a brother. That would be wicked as hell if you do something like that. So you never want to be speaking false reports against the brotherhood, especially, Verse 2, "Thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil, neither shalt thou speak in a cause to decline after many to wrest judgment." All right, so you don't follow a multitude to do evil. All right, you got a lot of people doing out here wicked shit, and just because these people are doing wicked shit don't mean you go and running with them. Even good example of that was when we had the jump shot. How many people went and ran and did took that jump shot? This is basically you're following a multitude to do evil, as an example. You go and took that jabby jab, the ouchie fauci, the jump shot. You basically followed a multitude to do evil. And you had bad times put on you because you had a lot of Jake dropping like flies because they had all kind of complications because they took the jabby jab. You feel me? All right? So we're going to keep reading. Verse 3. "Neither shalt thou countenance a poor man in his cause. If thou meet thine enemy's ox or his ass going astray, thou shalt surely bring it back to him again." All right, going into, the ox was a property, when we had farms and we were able to, have cattle. That's a property, so you don't just take your neighbor's cattle, especially the neighbor was your brotherhood. You don't take the brother's cattle just because it goes astray. You return it. Verse 5, "If thou see the ass of him that hateth thee, if thou see the ass of him that hateth thee lying under his burden, and wouldest forbear to help him, thou shalt surely help with him." Right? And even if you don't like the guy, if he's you may have differences with brothers or differences with people of Israel. You don't want to fuck over your own people, basically. Yeah, these 2/3 and stuff, when Yahawah puts it on us, the Spirit on us, when we become from fishermen to hunters, Jeremiah 16:16, then that's different. You can we're gonna be part of that righteous judgment, But until that happens, you really don't want to, for instance, you don't want to be giving your fellow Israelite brethren some pork or something like that, or you want to keep it lawful, especially with the house of Israel, everything lawful. Verse 6, "Thou shalt not wrest the judgment of the poor in his cause. Keep thee far from a false matter, and the innocent and righteous slay thou not, for I will not justify the wicked." All right, so stay things that ain't your business, and especially if it's a false matter, stay away from that thing, "And thou shalt take no gift, for the gift blindeth the wise, and perverteth the words of the righteous." Right? "A gift destroyeth the heart," as it is written. Let's see what happens to this. So yeah, a gift destroyeth the heart. So you don't want to be in that spirit of, you know, taking gifts from people and shit, you know. You'd use discernment. You know, like if a brother gives you a gift, you know, you can take a gift from the brotherhood, but you don't want to be taking the gift from Esau, Edom, like if you don't have to. You know what I'm saying? You know, like these women, they get gifts from Esau, as in the form of child support, in the form of alimony, in the form of you know, all these different services that women, you know, Jake women, and not just Jake women, but a lot of Jake women take advantage of the system, you know. And so their mind is destroyed. They think the so-called white man is their God because he gives them gifts. He gives them child support. He gives them, you know, alimony. He gives them, you know, housing. You know, food stamps. And so their mind is they think that's their daddy, really. You know, they'll do anything their daddy will tell them, Esau, but they ain't gonna listen to their husband, you know. So let's keep reading. Verse 9. Also thou shalt not oppress a stranger, for you know the heart of a stranger, seeing ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. Right? And strangers going into strangers of Israel. Alright? Now let me get that one precept real quick. I think it's in Proverbs. And really, when we read this verse that I'm about to read, it's talking about the mind when it says heart. All right, let's go to. It's always wrong. It's not in Proverbs. It's in Ecclesiastes 7:7. All right, it says, verse 7, surely oppression maketh the wise man mad, and a gift destroyeth the heart. And so the oppression, only ones who are bothered, only ones who are vexed, you know, with this oppression here in Babylon are the men and women who are in their right mindset, starting out with the Lord's servants, his prophets. You see, we're the only ones who are pissed off at the state of our people, you know. The rest of these people, they think this is it. They think this is the end all be all. That's why a lot of our own people go hard for Esau. You know, they go hard in the paint for Esau. You know, trying to make a kingdom, or trying to make an empire in his kingdom. Trying to build an empire in his kingdom. You see? But a gift destroyeth the heart. You know, like I was talking about them women, they get all these benefits from Esau's crooked system, and then that messes up their head, you know, messes up their mind. A gift destroyeth the heart. Let's move on. Exodus 23 and 10. It says, in 6 years thou shalt sow thy land, and shalt gather in thy fruits thereof. But the 7th year thou shalt let it rest and lie still, that the poor of thy people may eat, and what they leave the beasts of the field shall eat. In like manner thou shalt deal with the vineyard and with the olive yard. So check it out. You know how Esau never does this? You know, with like Bill Gates, he bought a bunch of farming land. You know, it's no secret. You can Google that. He's bought a huge portion of the farming here in Babylon, and he's not going to take a year off of his farming. That's a law in Yahawah B'Shem Yoshai. When we're in the kingdom, we're going to follow all the laws to perfection. So even this one, where you're going to give the land that 7th year, every 7th year, you're not going to till the ground. You know? You're going to give the earth that rest. You see? And that's a law. So we're going to keep that law in the kingdom. Verse 12. 6 days thou shalt do thy work, and on the 7th day thou shalt rest, that thine ox and thine ass may rest, and the son of thy handmaid and the stranger may be refreshed. Right? So your servants, the Sabbath, the Shabbat. You know, we're going to keep the Shabbat in the kingdom. You're not going to have even Esau's going to get a break on the Sabbath. The animals, and that's going to restore them, you know. They'll be restored. You know, the Israelites, we ain't going to be working, but we're still going to, you know, take time to just worship and keep the Shabbat holy in the days of the kingdom. Verse 13. In all things that I have said unto you, be circumspect, and make no mention of the name of other gods, neither let it be heard out of thy mouth. There you go. And I love that verse, you know, because you ain't even supposed to mention the other gods. That's why when we do the lessons, and we got to say that name JC, you know, and you know what I'm talking about, Cracker J. You know, I'm not going to say it just because I'm fresh off this verse. But you know, you shouldn't even utter those names in the mouth. Those names shouldn't even come out your mouth. You know? Unless for teaching purposes, like right now. You don't want to be saying JC, you know? The white Messiah. Fake white Messiah. You don't want to be saying things like Yahawah, Yahusha, Yeshua, all these different names shouldn't even be uttered out of your mouth. Alright, verse 14. 3 times thou shalt keep a feast unto me in the year. Thou shalt keep the feast of unleavened bread. Thou shalt eat the unleavened bread 7 days, as I commanded thee in the time appointed of the month of Abib. For in it thou camest out from Egypt, and none shall appear before me empty. And that's the time we're in right now. We literally just finished. We just closed out the Passover, the Passover, the Feast of Unleavened Bread. We just finished. What was that, last night? You know, this is the beginning of the year. You're gonna start seeing the trees get their leaves, the flowers bloom. Everything's going to start coming to life. And why is that? Because it's the new year. All right? So let's keep reading. Verse 16. And the feast of harvest, the first fruits of thy labors, which thou hast sown in the field, and the feast of ingathering, which is the end of the year, when thou hast gathered in thy labors out of thy field. 3 times in the year all thy males shall appear before Yahawah, Ba'ashem Yahushai, thy power. Thou shalt not offer blood. Thou shalt not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leavened bread, neither shall the fat of my sacrifice remain until the morning. So you see, we got specific laws that when we're in the kingdom, we're going to keep these laws perfectly. Verse 20. Behold, I send an angel before thee to keep thee in the way and to bring thee into the place which I have prepared. Beware of him and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. But if thou indeed obey his voice and do all that I speak, then I will be an enemy unto thine enemies, and an adversary unto thine adversaries. You see? So Yahawah, Ba'ashem Yahushai got our back. If we're, so long as we're doing what we're supposed to. This is why in the kingdom, nothing and nobody and no nation, any tribes outside of Israel, no one's ever going to be able to come against us, because Yahawah Ba'ashem Yahushai is going to be an enemy to our enemies and an adversary to our adversaries. All right? So you got to remember that. While we're going to be in the kingdom, we ain't going to have no problem keeping the law. It's going to come first nature, first hand. But right now, even in this flesh, the better we do with these laws, statutes, and commandments, the more the Yahawah is gonna be an enemy to your enemy and an adversary to your adversaries. So that's, you got to keep that in mind. We're in the flesh. We fuck up in the flesh. But if you can stay, walk in the spirit, then guess what? You're not gonna have to fear nothing. 23. For mine angel shall go before thee and bring thee into the Amorites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Canaanites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, and I will cut them off. Right? Yahweh's got our back against the heathen. Any heathen nation. Thou shalt not bow down to their gods, nor do after their works, but thou shalt utterly overthrow them and quite break down their images. So see, that's another thing. If we was in the kingdom, matter of fact, for those camps that say we're in the second covenant, you're supposed to be going to all these different churches. If we're in the second covenant, you're supposed to be, well, in the kingdom we're going to do this, right? Before the kingdom established, we're going to utterly destroy. Yahawah B'Shem Yahushua is going to take vengeance and destroy all the idols off the earth. There's never going to be a mention or whisper or utterance of the other gods, these false gods, pagan gods, no witchcraft, all this bullshit, all these things that people are into right now, the what else, Wiccan, fucking witchcraft, sorcery, fucking what's that other thing called, Santeria, all that type of shit, voodoo. This shit's gonna be all out the window, man. Alright? So you get the point, man. We ain't gonna be fucking around in the kingdom. There ain't gonna be nothing idolatry is out the window. But right now, if you're keeping all the laws, like a lot of these camps say, you gotta keep the law. Keep the law. Well, guess what? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you overthrowing these churches? Why aren't you overthrowing? Because why? Because we can't keep the laws here in Babylon to perfection. You see? We keep it to the best of our ability until, we are in the kingdom, and until it's time to take vengeance with Yahawah B'Shem Yahushua on these fucking heathen. Verse 25. And ye shall serve Yahawah your power, and he shall bless thy bread and thy water, and I will take sickness away from the midst of thee. See that? So with this truth comes with health. There shall be nothing cast their young, nor be barren in thy land. The number of thy days I will fulfill. I will send my fear before thee, and I will destroy all the people to whom thou shalt come, and I will make all thine enemies turn their backs unto thee. Right? Meaning people are, if we kept the laws and statutes, all these nations would be afraid of us. But because we're not doing that, this is why we have no power in Babylon. Like the Israelites, you so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, our elders always say it, if we were getting into a war with Edom, Esau would fuck you Israelites up. He's got fucking nuclear bombs. He's got, drones with fucking guns on it, machine guns, and all kind of shit. Robot dogs, super robots, soldiers that will fucking, kill you and your whole family in a heartbeat. You can't fight against Esau. That's his blessing, the sword. Matter of fact, where I'm working over here, with the security guard, where I'm working, he got a big old tattoo, Edomite. He got a big old tattoo of a sword on his face. It goes into their blessing. You can't fuck with your enemy right now, because why? Because you're not keeping these laws, statutes, and commandments. If we were, guess what? We'd have no problem handling Esau, even in the flesh. But it ain't possible till we're in the kingdom. And I will send hornets before thee, which shall drive out the Hivite, the Canaanite, the Hittite from thee. from before thee. And I will drive them out from before thee in 1 year, lest the land become desolate, and the beasts of the field multiply against thee. And it shows you that the beast in the field is actually the men. Let's talk about these heathens. They're beasts, and they're beast-like because why? Because they don't follow the laws, statutes, and commandments, because it's not for them. So they're literally, the heathen nations are beasts. When you're acting like a heathen, living like a heathen, doing the customs of the heathen, Yahawah Hashem Yahushua look at you like a beast. All right, Ecclesiastes 3:18, it says, "And I said in mine heart," or in my mind, "concerning the estate of the sons of men, that the Most High might manifest them, and that they might see that they themselves are beasts." You see that? So you Israelites, you're a beast when you're acting like the heathen. You're basically a beast. Let's keep reading. Where am I at? Let's see. Verse 30. I'm almost done here. "By little and little I will drive them out from before thee," talking about the heathen, "until thou be increased and inherit thy land, the land. And I will set thy bounds from the Red Sea even unto the sea of the Philistines, and from the desert unto the river, for I will deliver the inhabitants of the land into your hand, and thou shalt drive them out before thee. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor with their gods." And really, the only time when we were able to perform this obedience and perform this dominance was basically when King David established that dominance through his wars, through his King David was a warrior king. He was a battle expert. You know what I'm saying? So he was so good that by the time his son Solomon came around, we had peace on all borders. And Solomon, really the time of Solomon, that was when Israel thrived, and that was only for 40 years. Really the only time we really had order, like really good order in Israel, was when during the time of King David and King Solomon. You see, that's when we were able to do these things, and we were dominating the heathen, and they turned their backs before us. They were afraid of us. And that's obviously we haven't kept the covenants of Yahawah Hashem Yahushua. So now our people are all, they're fucked up, and they're not. None of these things are like our enemies aren't turning their backs on us. Esau Edom is ruling over us right now. Verse 32 again. "Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor with their gods." So you're not supposed to make a covenant, an agreement with the heathen or with their gods. So that means, that JC, Cracker Jesus, you're not supposed to be worshiping Cracker Jesus. You're making a covenant with the gods of the heathen, And you got to have the spirit of Yahawah Hashem Yahushua to reveal that to you. Because if you hear that statement and you get offended, then that means Yahawah Hashem Yahushua hasn't opened your blind ass eyes, and you're going to stick to following the gods of the heathen. And we say it before. I've said it before. The Israelites, they're the only people on the planet Earth that they follow gods that don't look like them. Do research and think about that statement. Our people are I'm going to say it again. Our people are the only people on the planet Earth, the so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, that follow gods that are not their gods. You see? Or their gods, they follow gods not only that are not their gods, but they follow gods that don't look like them. Alright, verse 33. "They shall not dwell in thy land, lest they make thee sin against me. For if thou serve their gods, it will surely be a snare unto thee." And that's what you see today. Because why? Because our people are following the gods of the heathen. They're following witchcraft. They're following sorcery. They're unknowingly they're doing this. It brings me to the 2 Thessalonians 2, and I'll start at 10. Let's see. Yeah, I'll start at 10. It says, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. Because why? Our people are following the gods of the heathen. You only have the remnant, the elect, that are coming back into the truth, coming back into repentance and understanding and obeying and following and listening and hearkening unto Yahawah, Bahashem Yahushai, your true powers. All right, the Father and the Son. It says, and for this cause, because y'all are you're fucking deceived. Like I said, if you're worshiping, following, or you're putting love or energy into white Jesus, cracker Jesus, you know, guess what? You're deceived and you're unrighteous and you're gonna perish. It says, because they received not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause, the Most High Yahawah shall send them strong delusion that they should believe a lie. You try to talk to one of these jakes about Yahawah, Bashem Yoshai, and if they're a part of the Christian church or part of the Catholic tradition, you know what I'm saying? If they're into Jesus Christos or white Jesus, man, they're going to get offended with you in a heartbeat. And really, they get cursed. But they unknowingly, they don't even know they're cursed. Because why? Because they got a strong delusion on them. They don't even realize it. I had a guy just, like last week, the Spirit jumped on me because he had a t-shirt that said something about worshiping. And the Spirit jumped on me to conversate with him briefly. And I noticed right away he's not of the elect. Because guess what? He got offended, you know, when I started to just give him I just gave him a little milk, and he couldn't even swallow the milk, you know? So, you know, when you see that in an Israelite, that they're about to get offended, or that you see right away, because they'll give you'll know, trust me, you'll know when you know, when Jake is not going to receive this knowledge and this truth. They get offended immediately, because remember, it tells you that this truth cuts to the marrow. It offends them right away. So anyway, you know, they're under strong delusion and they believe a lie. That they should believe a lie. So I'm going to go ahead and close out on that. I got to get back to the plantation. I want to give all the praise, all the glory, all the honor to Yahawah, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Kakwadash. Double honors goes out to the other apostles of Great Millstone for teaching me the truth. Also want to acknowledge all the Akyam who are pushing the truth with sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. Shalom to the elect. Keep pushing. Keep enduring.